What's the best school prank you have witnessed? A circle around two people forms. The members of the circle begin shouting loudly things such as "get him and knock him out." Hearing the shouts, kids from everywhere in the quad run over to watch the brawl. This gets the dean's attention, who also runs over. When he gets there, he urgently works his way through the crowd to ultimately see two nerdy kids playing chess surrounded by a very amped up crowd. This one happened to me personally. I was the victim. Wood shop class. My zipper binder was sitting on the big wooden table up at the front of the classroom. At the end of class, when I came up to grab my binder to leave for lunch, I couldn't pick it up off the table. It was so stuck it couldn't move at all. I unzipped my binder to realize my buddies had nail gunned the binder to the table with about 50 nails, then zipped it back up so it looked normal. Haha. I think it's pretty funny looking back at it now. Haha. School made my buddies pay for the book as well. Hid the book in the wood shop for about a month, then one of my buddies grabbed the book and ran it through the bandsaw to try and cut it in half. Book was already paid for, buddy almost had book cut in half when the bandsaw blade snapped and made a hell of a bang. He ended up having to spend a week of lunches in the principal's office. Lol. All the computers in my high school, including the office computers and principal's computer, had this software that let you monitor and control any of the screens. Well, it was the last week of senior year. We were about 5 minutes from the end of the day and were just waiting for afternoon announcements. My friend Jay had shown me before how he had somehow hacked into the software. Hack is a strong word. I think the password was something insanely easy and he figured it out, and he had gotten into the principal's computer and the office's computer. To keep from being caught, he did all this one of the laptops they had for students to use. That day, he got on the computer that controlled the bells and announcement and played "Where's My Mind" by the Pixies over the intercom. It was pretty funny because I, and like one other person knew what happened, and we got to watch everyone else ask what was going on. It was a mild prank, but funny nonetheless. We did this prank on all computers in the computer room. We took a screenshot of the desktop, set it as wallpaper, and then remove all the icons from the desktop. So they would furiously click on the icons, but nothing happened. Our computer lab admin dared us all to crack the security software she had installed on the Macs. I correctly guessed her password. We changed it and then sat and watched as she typed her password over and over again to log in. After a minute or two, she realized what was going on. We never did tell her how we cracked her security. My own prank. When I was in secondary school, my geography teacher left the room to go get something from the printer. Whilst she was out of the room, I put the clock forward by 15 minutes. When it got to break time, everyone started shuffling their bags together and she looked at the clock and sent us on break. She didn't realize until we had all left. About 2 years later, she also mentioned the prank in our whole school assembly. She looked directly at me and smiled at me. That same day, I did the same prank again, which she fell for. Again. Brother once threw fermented fish into the heating duct intake for school right before Christmas break was over. The smell permeated everything, and school was closed for the next few weeks while everything porous was replaced and decontaminated. I asked him and his answer was, I just didn't want to go back. He was a troubled child. Don't know if it's categorized as a prank, but it made my day. On our university we have this really old physics professor that dresses himself like he's always going to play golf. And he likes to put a chair in the middle of the campus and just chill there. One of these days he was with a fish rod on hands, like he was really fishing something just there on his casual chilling place. Then one student walked up to him and said, "Hey, Professor, what are you doing?" "I'm catching dumbo." "And how many you've got there?" "With you I got 3 inches. They told me I would need to know this stuff later in life. But you're probably capable of learning, critical thinking, mathematical thinking, and lots of other complex skills that make you the intelligent, capable, and adaptable person you are today. Quality education is much more about building strong minds than it is about acquiring discrete knowledge. The "when will I ever use this in the real world" mentality keeps a lot of students from engaging fully with the amazing opportunity of a rounded education. I can easily Google any fact, concept, or task, but my ability to interact with it successfully, to do something meaningful with, is rooted in years of education which, at the time, I barely saw the point of and now I'm deeply grateful for. Which is why now I care so deeply about getting kids excited about the opportunity of an education. For it to really work, they have to seize it. A coworker who is still in school was asking me about some of the classes I took in school. When I got to my programming courses, I'm in IT, and the languages my teacher taught with, he was like, WTF. My teacher taught using several odd languages that aren't commonly used in industry because they taught concepts well. I pointed out it was far more valuable than just learning the big languages. Coworker couldn't understand why I thought that until I pointed out I'm not a programmer and have never in my job needed to know C or Java. I did, however, get a 20% pay raise because I took over managing our interface engine, which uses its own syntax. Had never seen that type of stuff before, but the basic ideas weren't hard to grasp and I can use reference manuals to get the syntax. I'll take that 20% raise over being able to boast of unused Java skills. I always just rationalized it as I'm not going to use 90% of this, but someone else will use some of the bits I don't. They have to teach you a lot of stuff that becomes useless for all but the small percentage that will absolutely need to know that otherwise useless bit of knowledge. For instance, as a data analyst I never use any of the stuff I learnt in chemistry, but a pharmacist or engineer probably relies heavily on that stuff. There was a teacher in my high school that would constantly say some variation of "get your ducks in a row." She said something like this so often that kids who didn't know her name knew her by this saying. One of her senior level classes decided to play a prank on her in the last week of school. They managed to get into the school in the middle of the night and removed all the furniture out of the room, including any posters she had on the wall. They moved it all out to the parking lot and set it up exactly as it was in the classroom. They even had stands for the posters so they could be put up where they were in the room. When this was all completed, the students went back into the room and put up a bunch of posters of ducks with the teacher's favorite saying in big bold letters on them. Then proceeded to release about 10 live ducks into the room. When she got there and opened the door, she was greeted by quacking, feathers, and a litany of duck poop that made the room smell horrible. The punishment for the kids who did it? They had to clean it up and put everything back. In college we would take Oreos, untwist them, lick the cream, and stick the Oreo to the window of the first floor dorms. Most people kept their blinds closed if they had a dorm on the first floor, so at night, the deer and other animals would come to eat the Oreos off the windows and scare the suit of the dorm occupants. When I was in high school, I created an April Fool's virus. I loaded it up to the classroom computer on the break. In the middle of the class, it fired a fake error message, while slides are open, which said STH like there is a system error. When dismissed, the computer restarted itself. On startup, another message fired saying April Fools. Did you like the joke? If no was clicked, it triggered a second restart. I did something like this to a colleague. Not quite as involved though. I wrote a simple script when it would send and open a GIF of Rick Astley, and if he closed it, it would start playing the you didn't say the magic word from Jurassic Park in the background. Only way to stop it was to figure out what the process was in Task Manager or reboot.